Baker, bringing to you yet another podcast. And this week, we're just going to pretty much talk about NBA free agency, which is the big news on the block. There's plenty to talk about to fill up a good podcast for you. We're going to go over a lot of the top free agents, where we think they're going to end up, and we're going to specifically talk about some of our featured teams this week, the Atlanta Hawks and the Miami Heat, what we think they should do or maybe what will happen. So we're going to dive right into that. We've only got a group of 3 people here today. We've got Ben Goldberg.
Hey.
And Christopher Kaufman.
How's it going?
And then yours truly, your host, Hayes Rule. So we're going to start off by discussing maybe just some of the more pertinent news free agency-wise. And what are you thinking, Nick? Or Christopher, sorry. What are you thinking?
There's been a lot of buzz about, well, pretty much anything you can think of. LeBron James, even though he only opted out so he can re-sign with Cleveland. Then there's been buzz about Kevin Love, which is probably going to do much in the same. And mostly, if you look at it, if you just look at it, free agency as a whole, you're not going to see too many moves in general. You're going to see a couple big moves. But we'll get into that in a second. But as for most of the free agent deals that do happen are going to be placeholders for the free agency salary cap boom that's going to happen in a couple years. I mean, after next season. So you'll see 1-2 year deals worth X amount, which will be a bargain. Like, say, $15 million now will be a bargain come 2 years from now. But the main buzz around free agency has been generated by LaMarcus Aldridge, seeing that he's the top value free agent who's pretty much definitely on the move. But that's pretty much all I can think of on the matter before we go too far into it.
I agree with you there. I don't think this is a big free agent class. I think it's a solid one. Certainly not like what we saw last year. But the interesting thing for me with this year and next year especially is how everything goes down with the increase in the salary cap in mind for these players. And you've heard guys like Jimmy Butler already come out and say that they're really looking for short-term deals instead of the long-term deals, the kind of long-term security that we're used to seeing for players, which is strange. But it's for them, monetarily, it's smarter to get these short-term deals right now because of the salary cap that can increase by almost $20 million in 2 years. And I know the max contract of a player now is 30% of the total salary cap for a team. So once that cap goes up to 90 million, guys can get 30 million per year deals. So if you're a guy like Jimmy Butler or like LeBron James or even LaMarcus Aldridge, it might be smarter to take a 2-year deal instead of taking that 5-year deal where down the road you're going to end up making more money on your investment. What do you think, Ben?
I would agree with that. I think we all know it's a money-driven league, and I think to have the best players, you're going to need to pay more money or be willing to give them those bigger contracts. And I think we've seen in the past with kind of players that's what they're looking for a lot of times is they do want to win championships, but also if the money's there, they want that as well. So I agree with you. I think a lot of these guys like Aldridge and whatnot, whoever they do end up signing with, they should consider it being only a 2-year deal and then being able to get more money once we have the salary cap change.
Yeah, so before we go into some specific players, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Atlanta Hawks first. And I'll let Christopher start out on this point. Just tell me what you think will happen first with them.
When it comes to the Hawks, First off, the other free agents that we really need not mention, they're pretty much gone, being that Elton Brand, Pero Antic has already gone back to Europe, and then John Jenkins are just completely ignore those three because they're gone. Wouldn't have made much of a difference either way. But when it comes to the two big players that we're talking about for the Hawks, is Damari Carroll and Paul Millsap. Now, me looking at it, I already view them as okay, they're gone. What do we have to do to fill in their gaps? And I think people like what we should have done in the draft was keep Kelly Oubre, but looking at what came out of all the trading and stuff, I'm fine with what happened. I mean, we ended up getting two future picks. Granted, they're second rounders, but we also got Tim Hardaway Jr., which not clears cap space, but doesn't take as much cap space as it would have to keep Kelly Oubre. So I'm fine with that. Plus, he's already experienced in the league. But free agency wise, I could see us going for a guy like Greg Monroe, which would help out tremendously, and he wouldn't take up too much money, or at least he shouldn't, to fill in. Well, Greg Monroe to fill in that Paul Millsap gap. And when it comes to the small forward position, um, really there aren't that many. Like say, Tobias Harris is a name that keeps coming up that I keep hearing, but he is. Some people are saying that he's demanding far more than he's actually worth. Granted, I know he's like 22, 23 years old, has a really high upside to him, but he's not worth he's not worth what he's asking.
Yep. I've heard that
Um,
he's wanting max money,
yeah,
which is kind of ridiculous.
that's what
And
I'm referring to.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, no,
exactly.
that. I mean, I think he's still a solid player, and I think if the Magic could retain him, they would be awesome. And they're in a couple of years and whatnot with the lineup they're building. But he's nowhere close to being worth max money.
Well, and he's a restricted free agent, so the Magic can match any offer that he does receive. But if for some reason, somehow he receives a max contract, I think,
Wh-
Oh,
uh,
I didn't know he was. I didn't realize he was restricted. Okay,
yep,
yeah.
yep.
um,
Okay.
but here's the thing. I've heard rumors that the Celtics are willing to offer him max money, which kind of throws a wrench into this whole the Magic are going to re-sign him type of deal. But back to the original point about the Hawks,
Yeah,
filling the Damari Carroll gap. I mean, I could see us actually re-signing him. Sure, teams may be offering him. I've heard upwards of 15 million, but I think if the Hawks want to hold this comparison uh, as they were being compared to the Spurs, being called the Spurs of the East. I think Damari Carroll and Paul Millsap would have to show that they're willing to take lower salaries to stay with the Hawks than rather than taking higher salaries to go different places. But that's just if both of them stay. In in a kind of a short answer to wrap this up, I think we see Damari staying but Millsap going somewhere else, and perhaps Greg Monroe filling that position.
yep.
That's my ideal situation at this point.
See, the only thing I would say about Greg Monroe, right? Because I want to say it's him. He's from New Orleans, right?
No,
No,
he's
he's from
Detroit.
Detroit.
So it's Drummond. It's Drummond who's from New Orleans, wasn't it?
No, Drummond is also from Detroit.
Okay, then never mind. Because I was going to say there, I thought one of them was from New Orleans because one of them was reportedly interested in going to New Orleans. He openly said that he would go to the
Oh, okay. I see
Pelicans.
what you mean now. Like he was raised in New Orleans. I
That's what
thought
I
you were
meant.
saying he was
Oh no
on
no
the
Oh,
Pelicans roster.
okay.
no. I meant he's like from raised in New Orleans because it was one of them. It was him or Drummond. It was Monroe or Drummond who said that they would love to go to the Pelicans and return home.
No,
I can't remember which one it
well,
was.
Drummond is currently not on the free agency list, so I would imagine that's you're referring to Monroe, but
Yep.
I'll look it up to confirm.
Yeah.
I agree with you a little bit, Christopher. I think getting Monroe and getting rid of Millsap would be the ideal for the Hawks. Unfortunately for them, I think they're going to end up keeping both Millsap and Carroll. I just get the feeling
Well,
that what's
you
what?
say unfortunate, but that that's not a bad situation if they were to keep them both. But continue with your thought.
No, yeah, I feel like Monroe would be a better fit for the Hawks than Millsap. But anyway, with what I was saying, I think they're both going to end up resigning just because the Hawks are building that kind of mentality of keeping guys in their system. They want guys who are going to fit Coach Bud's system. Millsap does that well because he's a good passing big man. Shares the ball well. He can shoot. Carroll, kind of the same way. He's not a selfish player. He's willing to go on the offensive side of the ball or defensive side of the ball. It can really help you guys out. The thing is, especially if Carroll leaves, I don't think there's a replacement in free agency that the Hawks can find at this point because other than Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler, granted he's a restricted free agent, there and Tobias Harris, who's also a restricted free agent, there's just not much at the small forward position who could fit in the Hawks system and who could be a defensive and offensive threat for the Hawks. That could guard LeBron James down the road in the playoffs. So I think it's important for the Hawks to keep Carroll at a decent price, nothing crazy. Um, and for me, I think it would be smart for the Hawks to let Millsap go and to bring in Monroe, who's a little bit younger and a better rebounder and just better kind of down low, which is where they really struggled in the playoffs.
And
I could have.
also, I'd like to confirm. Yeah, Monroe is from Louisiana, so that was who you were talking about when it came to going back to his
Yeah.
home.
So I was saying he is openly like said that he would be happy to go back there and return home. So that's the only thing. I haven't seen any reports that the Pelicans are interested in him. That doesn't mean obviously that once free agency starts, they don't try and make him an offer to sign or whatever. But I think that would be a solid pickup for them, and I think that would be maybe one of the only reasons he wouldn't consider signing there. But I'm sure if he got an offer from a team like the Hawks, he would definitely take it into consideration.
Monroe right now is currently planned to meet with 4 teams on the first day. He's planned to meet with the Bucks, the Lakers, the Knicks, and the Trailblazers. So unless he meets with other teams later, it doesn't look like New Orleans or Atlanta's going to be one of the places he chooses.
Hmm,
Well, then,
that's interesting. I have heard Monroe to Los Angeles as a possibility.
I've heard
Um,
everybody to
yeah,
Los
yeah,
Angeles.
which is
exactly.
exactly what I was about to say. Everybody to Los Angeles.
Free agency always starts with Lakers planning to meet with this guy and like
Yeah,
basically every big name player in the in free
yeah.
In
agency.
the market.
Last year it was going to be Kobe, LeBron, and Carmelo are going to team up in LA.
Yeah, exactly. Then I heard like
This year
I
it's
heard Dwayne Wade to L.A. like things like that. So
Kevin
this year
Love.
it's this year it's Rondo, Wade, Kobe, LaMarcus Aldridge, Kevin Love, DeMarcus Cousins. Everybody's going to LA apparently this year.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It is kind of interesting how LA is just the hotspot for all agents,
well, it's because
possible free
it's because
agents.
it's a big city and they've got a lot of money. That's two of the most
Yeah.
appealing things for free agents.
And
Big city, a lot of money,
it's
and
a lot of history,
a history of winning.
a lot of
But
history for that franchise, no
Hey,
doubt about it.
friends come and go, but banners hang forever. Keep that in mind.
that's true.
I want to say something about that for a minute. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Oh, that made me love Kobe even more. Kobe
That's
Bryant is the
just
reason I started watching basketball, and I know I don't typically like players like him, but Kobe is an exception when it comes to it because he can back it up even despite his injuries recently. He can still back up how cocky he is.
oh, he backs it up, but like it's just that whole mindset is just ridiculous. Like him saying that, like
It's
it's
true.
just but it's so backwards. And like
Hey,
come
look
on.
at it this way. He's got how many rings does he have? 5? That's it. I'd say
I
his
know.
mentality is perfectly fine.
Yeah, but come on, down the road, you think he's really going to care about rings or the people in his life?
It's Kobe
I
Bryant.
mean,
He's going to care about the rings more.
look at Dwayne Wade. He's got 3 rings and he's got all the friends he needs.
Yeah, but does he
Who,
has does
LeBron
he have
James?
5?
Yeah, but he doesn't have five yet.
But here's the thing: Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade are different people.
I
Sure,
know.
friends might matter to Dwayne Wade, but to Kobe Bryant, any argument he gets into, he's just going to end it with, "Hey, 5 rings."
I know,
Exactly.
but that's
That's the Michael Jordan mentality.
He just pulls that pose he is in the picture with his 5 rings on one hand and just caressing his jaw.
no, I get that, but does he really just base his life off of winning NBA championships rather than the connections and friends he's made throughout his life? I feel like that's kind of
Probably.
shallow. I don't know.
I feel like Kobe Bryant's the type of person who does that.
I think
Like
it's just kind of sad,
I mean,
honestly.
I'm not saying like it's not sad or anything. I'm just saying he does seem like the type of person who would do that. But we're a little off point here.
Yeah, I'm glad you did bring that up though, because I wanted to say something about that. I just when I saw that quote, I just it was a two-way kind of reaction for me. It was kind of like a chuckle, like, "Are you serious?" And then I was like, "Wow, that's kind of sad that he even said
I
that."
when I saw the quote, I was like, "Wow, this just makes Kobe even more awesome in my mind."
I will agree to disagree there, but
This is the moment when we need Ross.
Hey,
I know.
one
Shoot.
of my favorite players of all time was big egomaniac, and pretty sure you can probably guess who that
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
There you go. Anyway, you got anything else to add for the Hawks?
Um, Not much.
Yeah, I just feel like Atlanta's trying to build that culture, like you said, in San Antonio, where they keep the same kind of guys.
Paul
Um,
Millsap ain't no Tim Duncan though. I'm just
no,
gonna put that out there.
he's
Oh
not.
no, obviously not.
Definitely not. No, but
But I think also it's shown with San Antonio that it's successful. Like you keep guys together, they know each other, they know they can you know you can play well with them, like that sort of thing.
and I feel like Monroe is really the only guy that fits into that system that can
Mm.
replace Paul Millsap. Um, and what
Speaking of playing well together, the opposite of that is the Miami Heat. You want to talk about how they can improve on that, Hayes?
uh, that was the worst transition I've ever heard of.
I know.
How do they
I just
not
wanted
play
to
well
move along
together?
and
I
bash
mean,
the Heat at the same.
they didn't play badly together, but they didn't play
Well, they
like
well the
with like
thing is
LeBron James together
they
either.
well
So
the thing is last year they didn't play well together because they're all injured. They had like the most
So you
starting
just proved
lineups.
your point.
They had the most different starting lineups in the NBA last year. But anyway, yeah. So they got three big free agent discussions going on down in Miami. Luol Deng has already been re-signed. He opted into his contract, which is worth 10 million, a little over 10 million. He'll be owed this year. For me, it's I'm kind of back and forth on that one. I like Deng. I think he's a nice piece for Miami, but he's very inconsistent. He's not healthy a lot. He's kind of like Dwayne Wade, where he's not going to play every game. You can't really ever tell what you can count on for him. But at the same time, he's good. He's a veteran guy that fit well in Miami. Just kind of like that Pat Riley mentality. He fits it well. But overall, I think I personally would have rather seen him just go and take that 10 million and spend it elsewhere to get some more offense and someone who can actually play every night. That was really the problem for Miami last year. Like we just said, they the injuries were just ridiculous for them. I mean, they had so many different starting lineups. The chemistry wasn't there. Who knows? Dragic came in the middle of the season. I mean, they were starting Udonis Haslam at times. It was pretty sad how beat up they were. So in the end, I think Dang was maybe not a good thing for Miami. I mean, it's good for Luol Deng because he wasn't going to make $10 million anywhere else. But I don't know. We'll see if he can stay healthy this year and hopefully Dwayne Wade resigns. Then maybe he'll help them make a run in the playoffs. But Dwayne Wade is really the big question here right now. I think he will eventually re-sign, and he's going to re-sign for what he wants, which is approximately 3 years, $48 million, about 16 million per year. I just, I don't think Pat Riley is going to let him walk away. And while he probably should only get anywhere from 10 to 12 million per year. He's just done so much for the Miami franchise. It would leave a really bad taste in the city's mouth, and really the NBA's mouth, that Pat Riley is trying to build that culture of a family franchise, and he let basically the face of the franchise walk away.
LeBron.
I know that.
Oh.
Well, LeBron, he didn't buy into the family atmosphere, I guess, because he left it for Cleveland to go back to his
Well,
home.
I think this is a lot though. What's going on with the Heat right now with free agency is a lot like we saw after LeBron left before last year. They're just kind of scrambling to get who they can get.
the,
Pretty much,
the, they're just trying to have a complete team once the season starts. They're just trying to have 13 players.
pretty much. I feel like that's a lot of their moves. Now, you said Dang opted in, but then you said they should have taken the money and spent elsewhere. So was it a player option or a team option that he had?
No, it was a player option, but the
So then,
thing
if
So
is,
they
he,
had no option.
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, they
exactly.
had no option.
So it's
But
like
of
it's not like
course, you
they could have.
can. I mean, obviously, the team has a little leeway there. You can always persuade a player to not opt into their contract.
Yeah, but it's
Um,
Luol Deng. He's like I'm not as good as I used to be, obviously. I'm not going to make $10 million elsewhere. Miami's a nice city. Why wouldn't I opt
Precisely.
back in?
That's why I think he re-signed, or sorry, opted into his contract. I just think for Miami, it was not a good thing that happened for them
It's
to.
Oh
it's
no, no,
essentially like
I agree with you. I agree
it.
with you on that. They would have been better off with using the money elsewhere, but there's not much they could have done about
Yeah,
that.
no, I
It's
agree.
essentially
I
like
agree.
what happened in Indiana with Roy Hibbert opting in to his 15.5 million. Oh man,
Exactly.
Ouch.
that's laughable. Even though Nick's not here, I want to apologize to him for even bringing up the fact that Roy Hibbert has a $15.5 million contract.
Man, I laughed at that contract when they gave it to him. I mean,
Oh man,
he dominated the Heat, who literally had no center, so of course he's going to dominate them in the playoffs. And all of a sudden, he became the best center in the league. Like,
This is what
it's
happened with Roy Hibbert. This is a story of Roy Hibbert. Wow, look at Roy Hibbert. He's incredibly underrated. Wow, look at Roy Hibbert. He is incredibly overrated.
pretty much. No, 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 no,
uh,
no. He went like,
that sums it up.
He went from underrated to overrated in one season.
I mean, it's kind of like Draymond Green at this point. Like,
No,
and
nobody's underrating Draymond Green. Everybody knows he's amazing. I mean, sure,
no,
he's
no,
not
wait, no.
MVP
No, I think
caliber.
at this point,
He's
people are
not the best
overrating him.
scorer defensively. I think he's a little bit overrated. Defensively, he's solid, but he's still not the best scorer in my
No,
opinion.
I think he is like Roy Hibbert. This season, from the All Star game on, before the All Star game, Draymond Green's an underrated player. No one talks about him. He is really the catalyst for the Warriors. All of a sudden, when you get into the playoffs, everybody's like, "Whoa, Draymond Green is like the stud of this team. They can't do it without him. They got to re-sign him to a max contract." All of a sudden, like it's 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 Roy
Basically,
Hibbert
the
2.0.
problem I have with you saying this is I don't want you to put this curse on Draymond Green to where he's going to be like Roy Hibbert.
I would love to see it. I have a
Don't
friend who's a Warriors fan. He's been hyping them. He's been hyping them since the start of the season, telling me ridiculous stuff like they're going to go 82-0. And
I said the same thing about the Hawks.
don't you put that curse on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't you put that on us. Oh gosh, but it's going back to the Heat for a second though, getting off Draymond Green. Um, what do you guys think Dwayne Wade is eventually going to do?
I agree with what you said. I think he's eventually. I think I've seen a lot of stuff too about like Lakers' interest for him and whatnot, and him having mutual interest. And I think a lot of it is him like maybe circulating stuff so that the Heat do because eventually, I think he wants to stay in Miami too. I think he's been there his whole career, and that's basically the only team he's known. And I think a lot of the stuff that you've seen about him going to other teams might have been like him circulating as a negotiating tactic to make Pat Riley be like, all right, he's got interest in these other teams. We need to go and obviously give him more money or he really will leave us, even though he probably isn't planning on it. So I think I agree with what you said. I think he'll eventually re-sign to Miami. It's just, it's would be too like, I don't know, incredible for him not to resign there. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is.
He's at this point. I think Wade is just exploring his options. He has interests in other places, but he's not going to go anywhere. I think he's gonna. It's much like what Carmelo Anthony did last year, where he explored his other options with outside of the Knicks. Like he talked with the Lakers and the Bulls and all these other teams, but ultimately decided to stay with the god awful Knicks. But
For the money, of course.
this is going to be that's going to be similar to what Wade is going to do. Wade is going to explore his option with the Lakers and what other teams he may be interviewing with, and then just stick with the god awful Heat.
Okay, hold on a second. We're talking about a team that if
That
they do
missed the
resign,
playoffs in the East.
if the, if they do resign Dwayne Wade, okay.
Yeah, but they
Do
were
we have
like
to go
a
over this whole discussion again? They
they were
didn't
a
have
couple
Chris Bosh for the whole second half of the season,
Excuses.
who was their best player.
and they were
They
still only
Hey,
like two
look,
games
look.
out of
How about
making the
this?
eighth seed.
Last year,
Granted,
the Hawks made the playoffs without Al Horford for half of the season.
But you have to understand, it's a different team dynamic. The Hawks fit well together. They're a team basketball team. Like
Last year,
I
not
know
this year.
they
Last
still
year,
were last year. I mean, they
when
had
literally Al
several.
Horford was our team.
No, no, you still had Jeff
Budenholzer
Teague and
hadn't
Damari
completely
Carroll and
you had
Paul
Kyle
Millsap and
Korver.
Kyle
moved
Korver.
in. Carroll wasn't anything last year. Nobody was talking about Amari Carroll last
I
He
year.
was
agree.
Like,
I will
decent.
agree. I will agree with that. No,
He
nobody
was
was,
decent.
but nobody was talking about Damari Carroll to the point that they talked about him this year.
No, I agree with that. He definitely was a lot better this year, but he was still decent. You
Jeff,
still had a team
look,
last year.
yeah,
This year,
we
the
had a
Heat
team. The
literally
team
went through.
wasn't all together yet. Sure, we didn't sign anybody too drastically great. I mean, we got Bazemore and Cephalosha in the offseason, but we didn't like the team chemistry wasn't 100% there. It's like what happened with the Heat. It took a year for them to get all good and dandy.
All right, but here's the thing though too. Your team didn't go from being LeBron
Well,
James to being the
and
Miami
that's
Heat.
exactly what I was about to say. I mean, Miami was scrambling out of their brains trying to recover from
No,
LeBron
no, no. I'm
James.
talking about pre. I'm talking about LeBron first going from Cleveland to Miami.
No,
That's
I'm
kind of
just
like what it
talking.
was. Granted, we didn't win a championship, but we went from a below 500 team to winning 60 games.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about the Heat last season.
I'm talking
They
about the
were
Heat seasons ago.
they were recovering from a bombshell. I mean, literally LeBron James leaving shocked the it shocked the Heat. I mean, Pat
Joe
Riley,
Johnson and Josh Smith left.
No,
I know.
I think I agree. I mean, if we're talking about last
Josh
year,
Smith. We're
I
talking about
know.
Josh Smith.
No, I know
they
what you're talking.
released
We're
Josh
talking
Smith.
about
They did.
LeBron
They
James.
If no, no, no,
letting
no.
Josh Smith go was a voluntary decision by the Hawks. They
No, that
released
was
him
the
from his
thing.
contract.
Here's the situation with this. Josh Smith was our offense when he was a part of the team when Joe Johnson had already been traded.
Brick
I'm going to get
offense.
to Joe Johnson in a second. He's somebody that we should have added to this list, but um,
Isn't he
Josh Smith, literally
trade though?
playbook for the Atlanta Hawks. Josh Smith last year there was give it to Josh Smith so he can take some stupid shot. Literally,
Well, that's why they're a better team now,
Oh yeah, much better, no
and
question.
better after he left. I'm just talking about the Heat at this point. I mean, you literally lost the best player, arguably, possibly the best player ever. And this is a guy you build your franchise around. You create your team to fit what LeBron James wants to do. You
yeah,
have
but
to recover quickly from that. I mean, they're just going out and trying to find people to fill in
just
to the
They'd have
team. I
taken
mean,
they'd have taken anybody off the
they
street.
had to sign the Wall Dang just to have a small forward in the
they
lineup.
didn't make the playoffs in the East.
I know, and that's because one, Dwayne Wade only played about 60 games,
Excuse
and
number
it's and no, hold on, he only played about 60 games, and especially in the first half of the season without Goran Dragic, I mean they literally had no scoring. Um, uh, it's a rebuilding kind of season for them, and they still almost made the playoffs without their best player.
All I'm saying is the Hawks made the playoffs 2 seasons ago with Pero Antich starting.
I know, but I'm telling you, it's a different team
Anything is
dynamic.
possible.
I mean, there were nights when the Heat had like 5 or 6 guys on off because of injury. I mean, they were starting guys like Bill Walker, or I mean, that's how bad the injuries were at some points. But
But look
now,
at what
but
came out of
now
these
we have to.
injuries.
But now we,
Hashawn Whiteside emerged as a top,
yeah.
well, not really a top tier, but you know what I'm saying, like a great center.
Well, and that feeds into what I'm about to say now is now we're transitioning into year two without LeBron James. You get past him and you can look at how you want to build your team now without LeBron James.
Which is
So now,
apparently with Luol Deng, Monta Ellis, and
no, hold
Goran
on.
Dragic,
So
and no D Wade,
if we're expecting right now,
Wait,
Dwayne
Monte
Wade,
Ellis, what?
if it is as we're
we'll
expecting
get
right
into it in
now,
a
with
second.
Dwayne Wade re-signing, Goran Dragic re-signing, and Luol Deng coming back and opting into his contract. You got a starting five of
Oh,
Dragic, Wade, Deng, Chris Bosh, and Hassan Whiteside. You've also got a
That's a
great
playoff
rookie.
team.
You've also got a great rookie coming off the bench in Justice Winslow. You still got the Birdman and Haslam.
And
You
Shabazz
still have
Napier. Don't forget about him.
Mario Chalmers off the bench. And Shabazz Napier is whatever.
no, he's
Uh,
not. Shabazz Napier is going to be awesome in a
He's
couple
the
of years.
future of the
oh my
franchise. He's the
goodness.
future.
No, you actually just wait and
He is
see. He
not.
will.
I am not
He's
going.
gonna.
It's not the future of the franchise. Come
He's
on,
He's
gonna
the
be
guys.
good
future.
in a couple of years.
Hey,
He was injured this season as well. Like when he did play, he was actually playing
He
fairly
cannot.
well. Like I think I'm not saying he's gonna be like I don't. He's not gonna be Chris Paul. He's not gonna be Russell Westbrook or
There's okay.
Stephen Curry or anyone like that. But I think he's still gonna be a solid point guard. He's gonna be better than Mario Chalmers.
does the
What?
do the Heat still have like what was his name? James Ennis,
I
Tyler
was about to
Ennis.
say, yeah, James Ennis is also another good small forward
He's
slash
a
shooting
point
guard kind
guard,
of guy.
wasn't he?
No, he's
Which
not.
one's there's one of the Ennises is a point guard. It's either Tyler or
Tyler
James.
Ennis is from Syracuse. He's a point guard.
Yeah,
He's not on.
Tyler Ennis is not a point guard. He's a center, isn't he?
No, Tyler Ennis is the point guard from Syracuse, but
Is he?
he's not on the Heat's roster.
And who? Oh, I'm thinking of Tyler Zeller, not Tyler Ennis. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh God, not Tyler
No,
Zeller.
James Ennis is second round pick from 3 years ago, I think, for the Heat. And he's a good guy off the bench. But they even have Josh McRoberts, who only played a few games. I know. Just hold on a second.
That signing was always a head scratcher from the moment they made it.
It was a head scratcher. But
Okay,
I'm just saying
okay, Miami fans, we
the
lost
African.
LeBron, but look at who we got you, Josh
No,
McRoberts.
He actually signed before LeBron left. I think that's partially why they signed him because they thought LeBron was going to be there and he could be a guy who could stretch the court out a little bit. And once LeBron left, they were like, oh, now we got this guy and we don't really know what to do
Do
with
they still
him.
have Shane Battier, or has he retired
No,
yet?
He
he
retired.
retired a while.
Are they
He
going to call
retired.
him out of retirement just so they can
No.
have a roster spot?
You are completely underestimating this Heat team. They are, if Dwayne Wade resigns,
They're a
they
playoff
are
team
a
in the
top
East.
four
Ray
team in
Allen.
the East. They are a
Ray
top
Allen
four team
back
in
to
the East.
Miami.
They are not a
Automatically.
top four team. They are number
They are
five.
too.
They are
No
number
way.
five.
No way.
They are not better than the Wizards.
They
They are
are.
not.
They are way better than the
They're
Wizards.
No, they're
not
not.
better
They're
than
not
the
better than
Wizards.
the Wizards.
They're
Oh
not
They're
yeah.
not. They're
better than
not
the
bad.
Yeah.
Cavs.
Look,
They're not
I'm a Heat
better than
fan
the
too.
Pacers when Paul George is healthy.
Hayes, I'm a Heat fan too.
Oh.
I live practically in DC, and I will tell you right now that they are not better than the Wizards. It's just they're not better than the Wizards. Maybe without Paul Pierce, they'll be a lot closer.
What do the Wizards have?
Bradley Beal,
They
John
have no
Wall,
outside of
Nene,
Paul Pierce. They
and
Oh,
have no
Gortat.
experience.
not Nene.
I'm talking about playoff experience. I got to see them win playoff series before I can say that they're going to take down a
They made
Dwayne
it
Wade
for the
led
last
team.
for the last 3 years. They've been in the second round. I think
Yeah,
last three or
it,
last.
the second
And
round.
remind me again what the Heat did this year in the playoffs?
Oh my
Oh, they
goodness.
watched it?
How much?
Oh,
How many times are we going to discuss this?
as many times
It's a
as the Heat needed
rebuilding
to get it
season
through your
for
head.
a team that had to deal with losing LeBron James and
Excuses.
dealing with the most injuries in the NBA.
You're also
And
dealing with the
they
Eastern
lit
Conference.
what is that? I don't care who they're having to play with. When they have to field rosters like
If they were in the
had
West,
to,
I would be understanding. But they're in the East, and they have that roster. Granted, most of them were injured for most of the year. They should still make the playoffs
no.
over the
No,
over.
I think
The
I think with
Milwaukee
the injury,
Bucks,
if they didn't get
were they a better
if they
team?
had if they didn't have the injuries they had and they still had the same record and everything, I'd agree with you. But I think with the injuries, you have to be a little more understanding, even in the East.
If
No,
they
they're the
don't,
Heat.
if Chris Bosh does not get hurt, I guarantee you they are the 5 seed at worst in the East.
I would
Yeah,
say as high
I
as
agree
the
with
5. I'd say 6 to 8, maybe.
Okay, no, I mean
No, no, no. With Chris Bosh, they are five at max.
I think at least a five.
No, 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 no.
You're telling me
Don't
they couldn't
get
be
overzealous
better
now.
than. I
The
still think
the Wizards are better than them. Toronto's better than them. Atlanta's better than them.
I don't think
Toronto
Toronto
got
is better.
swept out of their mind in the first
I was
round.
at the game that the Wizards swept when they went on to the second round and swept the Raptors. They blew them out. They looked like the better team. The Wizards looked like the better team the whole time.
The
It was
Raptors, I mean, the Raptors literally looked scared out of their minds in the playoffs. They had no clue what to do.
We can
yeah.
talk
You
about.
talk about a team.
Hey, 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 hey. We have a topic to get back to. We've gone down the rabbit hole. Let's dig our way out of this, and
All
let's
right,
some NBA free
let's
agency.
finish. Let's finish the heat up real quick. So Dragic is going to re-sign. They would not give up that much, stuff for him at the trade deadline. If he was going to go somewhere else this offseason, he's going to resign for 5 years, probably 90 to 95 million dollars.
I saw 80 million was the original offer. So is that
That was like the bare minimum for him, but they're saying he wants at least 90 million.
is he worth 90 million though?
90 million for
Well,
how many years?
5 years. So
So that's
with the
about
increased salary and with the salary cap increasing in 2 to 3 years, it's not going to look as bad. It's 5 years, 90 million is 18 mil per year. Which, I mean, it's a lot for him.
yeah, yeah, it's 18 mil.
It's a lot for him, but you know, when you're looking down the road in 3 or 4 years, when the salary cap
Yeah,
is up to ninety
an 18
million,
million dollar contract is going to be essentially what a 7 million is now,
yeah.
or a ten
So
million. Maybe not
it's
that low.
it's really not that bad. I mean, 100 million dollar contracts are going to be not the norm, but they're going to be, pretty out there quite often. Um, anything else you guys want to add for the Heat?
No, I think we pretty much covered it all. But
All right, so let's get into some of the players now outside of the Heat and the Hawks. Let's run through these guys relatively fast. We've got a list of about 10 to 15 that we want to cover. So first off, big man, LaMarcus Aldridge, probably the biggest free agent this year, who is most likely going to go somewhere else. I say he signs with San Antonio. It just makes too much sense to me. I think he'll end up. Obviously, he's going to sign a max deal, and he's going to fit well with Tim Duncan. Um, I don't think LaMarcus Aldridge can ever be the guy for a team, like he couldn't be the guy in Portland, but he doesn't necessarily have to be that in San Antonio when he's got guys like Kawhi Leonard, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, and then good old Greg Popovich.
Here's the problem with the San Antonio thing, though. They're going to have to do a lot of work to make this happen.
Yep.
You're talking about Ginobili taking another pay cut, Duncan taking a pay cut. They might even have to not even try and sign Danny Green. They're going to have to trade Tiago Splitter amongst a ton of other moves just to make this happen. I mean,
Uh,
don't get me wrong. I would love for this to happen. I would love for him to go to any one of the three Texas teams. But right now, it's looking like he's going to LA. I mean, I know everybody's going to LA, but he. I don't know if he has a home in LA. He's familiar with the Los Angeles atmosphere. He's down there a lot. I mean, it just makes the most sense for him to go to the Lakers on a financial level and on a personal level. Sure, if he wants to win, he can go to the Spurs or the Mavericks or even the Rockets, but right now it's looking like he's going to be going to the Lakers. Sure, I don't want that to happen. The place where I want him
well,
to go would be like San Antonio Mavericks, but San
well,
Antonio or the Mavericks. But what's looking like right now is he's probably most likely ending up in the Lakers,
well.
in a Lakers
Financially,
uniform,
financially, how is it better for him to go to LA?
because
he'll be able to get more money out of it.
LA
Not
can
technically.
offer him a max deal.
Well,
San
San
Antonio
Antonio could do the
cannot
same.
do
They
that.
just have to make room.
I know, but LA, he's looking at it. He can look at it like this. Sure, they're not going to be good in LA, but that's where his home is. That's where one of his homes is. I don't know if it's his actual home, but and
Or his, I mean, he's from Texas,
he is from
so
Texas, which that plays a factor into it.
yeah.
But
I
he's
I
I think I
he's
think
going to be
if he's looking for money, the place to go is most likely Portland, since they can offer him the fifth year. And
and people who say weather doesn't play a factor into it are just they don't know what they're talking about because the LA weather that also has plays a role into where he's going to go.
Texas weather though too.
Yeah,
Texas weather's
Texas
pretty
weather
good.
is dry. Well, not so much anymore. They've actually kind of come out of the drought a little bit, but it's
Well, Los
But
it's
Angeles
that's like
or
saying, but hold on a
California
second.
had that
If we're,
whole water
don't
thing,
get
the
me wrong.
water conservation thing. So if you want to talk about dry,
but if we're talking about weather
Texas weather
here,
and California weather are two different things. Granted, they
well,
may be similar,
I mean,
but
Southern California and
nobody
Texas are
nobody talks
similar.
about that beautiful San Antonio weather. They always talk about LA weather. Sure, we're talking about the weather now, and that's boring as everything, but it'll play a factor into it. Honestly, I think LA is the place he ends up.
I think the biggest factor is going to be whether he wants money or he wants winning. Is going to kind of be how he makes his decision. Does he want to win or does he want to get more money? And I think if we're talking about what we said before with the taking a 2 year deal for when the salary cap goes up, and then signing a bigger contract, then he could sign with like somebody like San Antonio or somebody like Dallas or somebody like Houston, because if he only signs 2 years, he's going to get another chance. Then he could re-sign with the Lakers and get his max contract.
Um, and one thing I would like about if he goes to San Antonio, it'd be kind of like what we saw when Duncan came into the league with David Robinson, kind of like Robinson handing off the reins to the franchise. That's what we could see if Aldridge decides to go to the Spurs. Like Duncan's like, all right, this is your team now. Because if Aldridge goes to San Antonio, Duncan's not retiring. Those two are
No,
going to
no.
have 2, maybe 3 years. No, that would put Duncan
I
at 40.
I think I think Timmy's got like one more year. I mean, two at the absolute
Yeah.
max, like at the absolute max. But no, he would definitely return if Aldridge is in the picture. It just going back to the weather thing. I think that's kind of a faulty, you know, thing to say because you look at LeBron James. I mean, he went from Miami to Cleveland
And
because it's
sure,
his
weather
home.
doesn't play a factor to everybody, but it does play a factor to
It,
most people.
I agree, it does. But when it's your home, like Texas is Aldridge's home, it's
It's where he's from. It's not
yeah.
necessarily his home. He has a home in LA.
Well,
I'm
I
just putting
know,
that out there.
but I mean,
But
where
if I
you're
was a
born and raised is
professional,
your always your
if
home.
I was a professional athlete, I'd probably have a home in LA too.
And that is true.
I think anybody would have a home in LA if they could afford it. That's the thing. What do you think, Ben? Did you say who you think he'd go to?
I think now what I'd like to see him, where I'd like to see him go, and where I think he'd be awesome is if he went to Houston. Now the likelihood of that happening is probably very little. I mean, again, it would be kind of the same situation. They'd probably have to make quite a few moves, maybe not as many as San Antonio would, to try and get him to come there. But they definitely have to try and make a few moves to make his contract work with James Harden and with Dwight Howard. But I honestly, I could agree with what Christopher said that he's going to go to the Lakers. It seems realistic to me as well, and it would it would make the most sense for him, and it would mean less reshuffling for obviously for a team and whatever. But that doesn't mean that San Antonio and anyone else won't try and make it as hard a push to sign them as they can, obviously. And you never know. It's going to be interesting to see where he goes. And like I said, I think it's what he values more, money or winning.
I agree there. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. It'll definitely be interesting. The funny thing is, he's actually got interviews lined up with the Phoenix Suns and the Toronto Raptors, of all teams.
No, the Raptors have been making a big push in signing him. I haven't heard much out of the Phoenix Sun side, but I have heard stuff out of the Raptors. But The likelihood of that is very low.
Well, yeah, Chris Broussard basically stated he'd be absolutely floored if either of those teams were to sign him. But I found that kind of interesting
Well,
that he would even.
if you want to talk about dry weather, boy, Phoenix
Phoenix.
would be dry weather.
Oh yeah, that's dry weather. Who knows, man? He might like that dry weather. You never know with people
We're
like
spending
different
too
kinds
much
of
time on
weather.
the weather.
Yeah, we are. We Let's move on to Mark Gasol.
He's not going to be going
Grizzlies,
anywhere.
Grizzlies.
Yeah,
Yep.
agreed. Let's not spend too much time on this one. He's staying in Memphis. It's a near done deal. 5 year max contract. Good to go. Kevin
Yep.
Love.
Um, if he goes anywhere, it would probably be to LA, but I know that's literally what everybody is saying. But I don't think he's going anywhere though. I think
I
he's
don't think they'll
staying in
go.
Cleveland.
I don't think they'd get Aldridge and Love. I think it'd be kind of one or the other,
Yeah,
and I think they'd rather have Aldridge to Love. And yeah, but I don't know. I could see him moving though somewhere else,
I
LeBron has said he's not going to try and recruit him. Then again, he's not going to have a hand in the free agency at all.
Well, that's
But
a load of bull. LeBron runs that team.
yeah,
I mean,
but still, my point is that I don't think LeBron really wants him to be back on that team. I don't think he was injured for basically their whole playoff run or for a good part of it,
the important
and
part.
exactly, and he wasn't there. And I think there were reports that LeBron and Kevin Love were having their differences and they were having fights and whatnot, and I just don't think LeBron wants him there, and I think the smart move for Cleveland would be not to try and get him because right now he doesn't seem like he's a good locker room influence, and he's not helping this team because he's always injured.
Come to Atlanta.
I'm sure you would like that. But for Kevin Love, I just can't imagine him staying. It just feels like the bad blood there is too much. It just feels wrong. So I think he's going to end up going to Boston.
But I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah,
Boston
neither did
would
I
make
actually.
sense.
Boston's got to get somebody this off season, and Love makes a lot of sense. I think they'll throw a lot of money at Kevin Love. They're buying the love for sure. Even though Kelly Olynyk and he would have a little
Organic.
scuffle probably when they met for the first time, but I think it would make sense for him to go to Boston. He'd be the main guy there, which he obviously wants. And they're not bad. I mean, they made the playoffs last year, so I
They're the
mean,
seventh seed.
with him in the equation, they could be decent.
Wasn't it that it was like Rondo and him were in a box at the Red Sox game or something like that together that started all the Love to Celtics rumors?
I guess yeah, maybe a little
I think
while
I do
back.
remember hearing something about that.
Yeah. Yep. And before we go on to Jimmy Butler, I just want to note some news that just came out. Anthony Davis just signed a 5 year extension with the Pelicans for
Nice.
145
Great move.
million.
I'm actually really happy with that.
Yeah. So that's good.
That's really good for the Pelicans. They obviously haven't had a star like that since Chris Paul, and now they don't have to have the worry of him
Hmm.
leaving like Chris Paul.
Yep. And then we're also going to talk about Kawhi Leonard here in a minute. News is kind of coming out that he and the Spurs are working on a framework for a max contract, which does not surprise me at all. I mean, he's going to stay in San Antonio. So
Um, I think they actually have agreed on a max contract,
okay.
max extension at least.
Hmm. Okay. Yep. All right. So let's look into Jimmy Butler here.
He's staying. He's going to get a lot of money, but he's staying in Chicago. Chicago's going to do whatever they can to keep him uh, on the Bulls roster.
And I love Jimmy Butler personally, probably a lot more than most people. I mean, if you have read my article from a few weeks past, he was number 10 on my most valuable players in the NBA right now. And the weird thing here is the Bulls have offered him a 5 year, $90 million contract. But he doesn't seem like he wants to take that deal because he wants the 1 to 2 year deal. So in 2 years, he can sign the bigger contract with the salary cap increasing. And that's where this scenario where we were talking about in the early portion of our podcast about will guys take the short contract or the long-term contract, that's where this kind of thing comes into play. He's a restricted free agent, so Chicago cannot or can match any offer he receives. But do you think he's going to end up taking that 5-year deal?
Mm,
I think they're gonna eventually meet. Or excuse me, eventually come to a oh, what's the word I'm looking for?
a
An
resolution,
Yeah,
agreement?
come to a
agreement.
resolution where both sides get what they want. Obviously, the Bulls would get Butler, and Butler would get his 1 to 2 year deal. I don't think we see Butler leaving at all. They're like I said, Chicago's doing whatever they can to keep him.
I agree. Chicago's got to keep him. They got to keep him. I mean, if they want any chance to compete while Derrick Rose is still kind of on his legs, uh,
Hmm.
they got to keep Jimmy Butler. I mean, he's been their only consistent guy for the past few years. Tom Thibodeau has basically run him like crazy, averaging nearly 40 minutes per game, leading the NBA in minutes. But he's
Who did Chicago ended up signing as a coach? I don't quite remember.
was it
Was it
Hoiberg?
Gentry?
No, Gentry's on the Pelicans.
I believe
Gentry
it
went to the
was I
Pelicans.
believe it was Frank Hoiberg.
It was Hoiberg. It was Hoiberg. Now
Yep,
that you say that.
yep, out of Iowa State. So that'll be good. I mean, he's not going to play him 40 minutes per game. I know that's part of the reason why Chicago wanted Thibodeau out of there because he was, killing Jimmy Butler with the amount of minutes he was giving him. But yeah, so we all agree Jimmy Butler's staying in Chicago.
Yeah, I agree with that at least for the time being.
hmm All right, let's move on to Draymond Green.
Uh, Much in the same with like what was going to happen with Jimmy Butler. Draymond Green's going to stay put in Golden State, even though he's going to have a lot of money come his way.
I think he's going to have too much money come his way, honestly. I think Golden State is going to retain him, but it's probably going to be a little bit more expensive than it should be. I'm thinking it's probably going to be in the area of 5 years, 85 million. And it's not quite max contract. And he said he was willing to take less than a max contract, which I would certainly hope because he's not max contract
I just
worthy.
hope it's not. I just hope Atlanta is not the team throwing that much money at him. I mean, I like Draymond Green, but come on, he's not worth that much.
For your sake, I hope they don't. 85 million is a lot for Draymond Green. I mean, he's a guy you could give like 13 to 15 million per year. Maybe you could feel comfortable giving that to him.
I feel like a lot of teams are going to overvalue him too because he's coming off the team that just won the NBA Finals and he played his best basketball in the playoffs.
hmm
And I think a lot of teams will overvalue him because of that.
I think he's Roy Hibbert 2.0, man. I'm sorry to say it.
I can agree with that.
Hmm.
I'm sorry. I know that hurts you.
I just it's kind of like I know people who've had knee injuries, and they said they wouldn't wish their knee injuries on any other person in the world. I don't want to wish a Roy Hibbert-esque career on any other basketball player.
I agree. I don't wish it upon anyone, but I'm sure Draymond Green wouldn't quite mind getting $85 million.
Oh
That is
no.
true.
So maybe he does kind of want that upon him. Uh, yeah, what do you think, Ben?
Uh, yeah, like I said, I think Green will be overvalued a little bit because he's from the team that just won the finals and he played his best basketball in the playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get that $85 million, but I don't think he's worth it. But I will say that I think he is going to stay with Golden State. I think it would be too weird and for him not to stay with Golden State.
It would
I think it's
certainly, yeah, it would certainly affect their team chemistry. I think he is maybe not a big part of what they do, but he's certainly a piece that they need to keep. Hopefully,
well,
I just for their sake, I just hope they don't overpay him.
I think
Hmm.
he's solid defensively. Like I think he's their best defender probably, or definitely one of them.
Sure.
And I think if they lose him, they lose a significant part of their defense.
Mhm. And talking about defense, let's look at DeAndre Jordan. He is an interesting case because there's several teams who are showing a lot of interest in him, and it's really questionable whether he'll go back to Los Angeles. I've heard things suggesting that he's not going back at all, that he's gone because of
No,
his relationship with Chris Paul.
no. Here's the thing. If he's not, I don't think he's going to go anywhere. If he does go anywhere, it's to Dallas because he's essentially a younger Tyson Chandler.
Agreed.
Yep.
And
That's actually where I think he's going to end up. I think
if
he's
he
going to end
goes
up in
anywhere, it's
Dallas.
Dallas. But I'm predicting it as he's staying in LA. The Clippers, not the
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lakers.
no, I agree, and I found a lot of the saying that he was going to LA kind of funny. Why would you? You're staying in the same city. You're trading in your team that actually can win for a team that can't. Like, if you're gonna switch teams, at least switch to a different city.
I think he's
He
going to get a
wouldn't have
little
to
bit
move.
overpaid too, though. Uh, just because of the market value for him.
Well, I think here's the thing about centers and power forwards. I think the consensus is that it's shallowest position in the NBA, power forwards and
Oh,
centers.
definitely.
Agreed.
Like
Especially,
there's no really good there's not no really good, that's not what I meant. There's not a lot of really good power forwards or really good centers.
there's.
Like
Sorry to interrupt, but there's quite a number of good power forwards. Just they're also playing center.
Yeah.
There's
There's not a lot
yeah,
of
not an
true
infusion of center.
centers.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a better way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is what I was about to say is you said you think he'll be overpaid, but I agree with that. He probably will be, but a lot of times you're gonna have to overpay if you want to get that really good, if you are that solid true center to play for your team instead of getting.
Sorry, it sounded like you were saying DeAndre's a true center for a second.
Okay, well, yeah, he's got. That's not what I meant either. But
He has no post moves.
yeah, I know, I get it. But you get what I mean. That solid
I
center.
just,
That
if you want a big man, you're gonna have to pay.
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it boils down to that, unfortunately. But he and Dirk, I think, would be a really good pair together because they'll complement each other well.
And and also, if I've heard like pretty much if DeAndre does go to Dallas, then Tyson Chandler is probably going to find his way to LA. It's basically a swapping of big men.
I think the Clippers would be okay with that to a certain degree because Tyson Chandler would be a lot cheaper than DeAndre Jordan. And I
Um,
don't think the effect that he has on the game is a lot less. So, especially with the free throw shooting aspect, that's an issue.
They're both bad free throw shooters, though.
Yeah, let's not pretend like Tyson Chandler's any Stephen Curry or anything.
Well, I
He
mean,
may be better than DeAndre, but it's not that much.
that's just because pretty much anybody's better than DeAndre.
What about
Well, I
Dwight
don't know.
Howard?
Maybe
Dwight Howard,
Okay,
Shaq.
Rondo.
I'd probably I'd take Dwight Howard over DeAndre Jordan if I
Mhm,
needed a free throw.
it's interesting.
Hmm.
I don't know. Jalil Okafor might be the next worst free throw shooter ever.
I don't know. Shaq is hard to beat.
I don't know if Okafor shoots like he did in college. He shot 41% from the free throw line. So
That's beside the point, though.
yeah, I know.
Anyway,
Anyway,
should
sorry.
we move on to the
Yeah,
next one?
let's move on to Rajon Rondo.
Um, uh, for starters, he's definitely not going back to Dallas. I think everybody in the world knows that.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
no.
Um, he's. I haven't heard much outside of he's going to Los Angeles. Um,
The
I'd like to hear.
Kings the Kings and the Knicks are showing interest
I'd like to
Okay,
see.
as of now.
if he goes
I
to the
think the
Kings,
Knicks would be interesting because they weren't smart. They didn't draft Emmanuel Mudiay as they should have.
Yeah.
They got a, Porzingis or however you pronounce it.
Yeah, yeah. Kristaps
Um,
Porzingis.
Porzingis, yeah.
but
That would be
they're in desperate need of a point guard. Because Jose Calderon's not taking them anywhere. Um,
Oh
you
man.
could say that again. But
so
I think that would be an interesting dynamic with Rondo and Carmelo.
I think it'd work out fine.
Well, Rondo's a
But
pass
Rondo,
first.
I
Rondo's a
know
No.
Rondo's
Rondo's pass after 22nd first. There you go.
precisely,
He
precisely. I mean, he is
he
such a
waits
ball
forever.
hog.
He
yeah,
waits forever, and then all right,
but he's still
boom.
up there. He's still up there in like the top five leaders in assists usually every year.
I know, but that's because he holds on to it, and then the player has to just shoot it. And half the time it goes in, so then he gets an assist. I mean, that's kind of how it works. And Carmelo's not going to be happy because he wants the ball in his hands. I mean, that's like putting. Well, that's like the whole thing with Kobe and Rajon Rondo. I don't see how that's going to work.
I think I think since Rondo is not getting traded to anywhere, he's going to be fine wherever he picks to go. Like he's not going to have any sort of issues like he had with Rick Carlisle and the rest of the Dallas Mavericks. I think he's going to be fine wherever he goes on an emotion, not an emotional, on a mindset type of deal where he's gonna go out there and play like he wants to win, not play just to get out of there like he was with Dallas.
I,
But
I think New York would make more sense than Sacramento because if Sacramento does keep George Karl, that would be kind of an interesting relationship there. He and
Oh,
Rajon Rondo, considering George Karl wants to get rid of DeMarcus Cousins.
and
For
then the Kings are basically saying, "All right, we're
let's
gonna get
bring
rid of you then."
let's bring in Rajon Rondo to replace DeMarcus Cousins.
No, it's looking like Carl wants to trade Cousins for his entire Nuggets roster.
Um, I mean, you mean the one that had no one?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
uh,
anyway,
I don't. I really don't know where Rajon Rondo is gonna go. I can't give a good prediction as of now.
back to Boston.
I'd love to see that. I'd
That
love
would
to see
that
that.
would be just strange. I mean, Doc
He
Rivers is
didn't choose
gone.
to go away from Boston. Boston chose to go away from him.
Yeah, and I think it's partly due to be because of Doc Rivers,
Hmm.
but I still think the management would be a little iffy on that. I don't know.
I know.
Uh,
I was throwing that out there as more a bold statement than
yeah.
a.
No, I understand. I understand. Greg Monroe, we've kind of already talked about him a little bit. What do you think he's going to end up in Atlanta ultimately?
No.
Um, Best case scenario for me, yes, but in all reality, no.
I think he
There's. Oh, you go ahead.
I think he ends up in Los Angeles. Personally,
This is a type of deal where we look back at a list of 15 guys and 13 of them are going to LA.
I
And all 13 of them
I'm,
go.
I'm not gonna lie. Like the next six guys
No,
on this
that's like
list
a prediction, but never
is
mind.
like L.A. possibilities.
It, Basically, what it boils down to is they have a chance of going to LA. They're one of the 900 guys who, if LA wants, they'll sign them. They're not going to get all 900 of them, but they'll get they'll get like
They'll
a
get
good
like they'll get two
750.
of them. They'll have nine. They'll bring in 900 guys for a visit, and they'll pick two, and they're like total scrubs. Like
And then trade for all the rest.
they'll end up re-signing Jeremy Lin. That's exactly what they'll do.
To a max deal.
Uh,
Not
Goodness
if he goes to New
gracious.
York.
Eh,
Oh,
bring back a Linsanity, huh?
Well, I read something on that the other day that they were taking serious consideration about bringing him back.
Well, that's Phil Jackson's master plan. I mean, that's why he didn't draft Moutier.
Jeremy Lin,
They had to
Jeremy
bring
Jeremy
back
Lin.
Jeremy Lin, baby.
master plan.
Oh my gosh, that would be just bringing back Linsanity to New York.
Bringing
Oh,
it back to where
Linsan.
it all started.
Uh huh. Greg Monroe to LA though. That makes sense to me. He'd be good with Julius Randle.
I think Greg Monroe's going to do whatever he can just to get out of Detroit. I mean, come on.
The
Who,
murder capital of the world.
yeah, who wants to go to Detroit? Josh Smith, apparently.
Ah,
Well, actually, yeah, I mean, he did go to Detroit, but he's at least he's gone now. He went to
He
Houston.
didn't choose to leave.
Yeah.
Detroit kicked him out. That shows how bad he is. The city of the city of Detroit evicted him.
That's pretty sad.
oh,
I
that's
mean,
funny.
well, I'm just gonna say this real quick. I don't want to go into a whole Josh Smith thing, but what were they thinking in the first place, putting him with Andre Drummond and Greg Monroe?
On paper, it looked good.
But he can't play the three.
He did in Atlanta. Granted, he didn't in Atlanta at the same time. If you get what I'm saying,
Well,
but
I mean, just giving him playing him at the three just kind of reassures him in his own mind that he's allowed to shoot 3 pointers. I mean, it's like, okay, I'm kind of a wing player. I can shoot threes. I mean,
playing
I only shoot about 20% from 3 point land, but I can shoot
on
threes.
18 3-pointers a game.
Poor Houston. I was watching them in the playoffs and I was just like, I pity you. Yeah, I mean, he's literally bricking it off the everywhere. He bricked it off of
But
everything.
anyway, this is what happens when you mention the name Josh Smith. You
Yeah,
go down another rabbit hole.
we go on a
A
rant.
rabbit hole of what could have been if he had been smarter.
All right, Tristan Thompson, another guy who's going to get overpaid.
Staying in Cleveland.
Yep.
Probably right. I don't know though. Didn't
It really just depends on what the GM thinks. LeBron James. I don't know. What do you think? It depends if he wants him or not.
isn't it too though? Wasn't there all those reports that he wanted to leave and he'd asked for a trade? Was that him?
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
recall.
I
It
don't believe
was
so.
maybe it wasn't him. It was never mind. It might have been the shooting guard who played for
Shumpert
them. No,
Smith.
not Shumpert or Smith before them.
Oh, you're talking about Dion Waiters.
Yeah, waiters. That might have been. That's I think who it was.
Yeah.
Not so.
No, but Tristan Thompson, he'll probably end up staying in Cleveland. They can't let him go.
He'll get overpaid. I agree though. He'll get overpaid again.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Brooke Lopez.
I haven't heard much out of him. I don't. I can't think of an ideal place for him, to be honest.
Sources are saying that he's going to
Portland.
stay in Brooklyn.
Portland would make sense. Brooklyn would not make sense if he wants to win.
I could see him going to Portland.
But
Uh,
Portland, I mean, you're not going to go to Portland to win either.
Not necessarily.
You have
Damian
a better
Lillard.
chance in Port. You have a better chance in Portland than you do in
Oh
In
yeah.
Brooklyn.
the, in
I I
in the
think I
West,
think
I mean,
I think the Nets are also.
they literally only have Damian Lillard left. Like
That is true.
they got rid of their entire starting lineup.
But that would be discounting Lopez's ability as well. I mean, he's not LaMarcus Aldridge, no question, but he's still.
When he's healthy, though, I will say this:
He's pretty good.
he is top five.
Yeah,
Not of all positions, but of his position.
I
Top
Oh
agree.
five.
yeah,
When
no.
he's healthy, he is one of the best offensive big men in the league.
But that's the
That's a,
gamble you got to take.
Yeah,
Is he going to be healthy this game, or is he going to tear another ligament?
yeah. I think, I mean, teams are expecting him to re-sign with Brooklyn. I haven't heard of anybody else outside of Brooklyn, so we'll see.
I Portland is what I'd like to see because I think it makes sense, and I think it'd be a good fit for him.
What about
Uh,
Milwaukee?
Milwaukee aren't in any position to get anybody, honestly.
Exactly.
Who wants to go to Milwaukee for one? I mean, granted, props to Jason Kidd for what he did with that team. I mean, that team was nowhere near a playoff team, and he made them one.
Mhm.
So I give a lot of props to what he did with that team, but
And I mean, they did do that without Jabari Parker too.
and I think that's the
And they
only
got
thing that's the only thing
Antetokounmpo.
they have going for that's the only thing they have going for them right now is that they have Jabari Parker. Really,
And
And
Antetokounmpo.
Antetokounmpo. I mean, and they got John Henson down low. He's not bad.
Is OJ Mayo still there?
I
Is
yeah,
believe
OJ Mayo
so.
still
I
alive?
believe.
Yep. OJ Mayo's still alive. They got
What happened to him?
I don't understand why they traded Brandon Knight. That's another story though. We won't
That's
go on
tough
to.
for another day.
Yeah, Danny Green.
If he doesn't leave, I mean, if he doesn't stay, um, I've heard places like maybe Chicago. I mean, I don't know how they'd be able to afford him, but I've heard it. I'd like to see, honestly, Indiana. That'd be interesting, but again, comes down to if they can afford it. Well, now that David West is gone, they're probably focusing more towards
Mm-hmm.
the power forward position.
Yep.
But anyway,
Well,
I haven't heard much outside of that.
I haven't heard much out of him either. I just know a lot of teams are interested in him. I do think he's going to end up leaving San Antonio ultimately.
Come to Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I wouldn't mind him going to Atlanta. I wouldn't mind him going to Miami, as well as the next guy here, Wesley Matthews. Who's kind of fits the same mold. Maybe not quite as good of a defender, and he's also coming off his injury, so we'll have to see how he recovers from that. But he's another dynamic shooter, 3-point guy that's going to stretch the floor. Um, have you heard anything there?
Um,
No.
I think here's the thing about Wes Matthews. It comes down to an if situation. If D Wade leaves Miami and goes to LA, Wesley Matthews going to Miami. If D Wade re-signs with the Heat, then Wesley Matthews is going to LA. That's
Fair to
pretty.
Uh,
say.
That's
Fair to
what
say.
I've heard. He's the guy who's like, all
He's
right,
the
we
he's the
didn't we did
replacement.
we didn't get D Wade. We'll get Wesley Matthews.
Yeah,
He's he's a good alternative to the situation.
it's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I
I,
can agree with that.
well, I think that's also because if if Dwayne Wade doesn't resign with the Heat, he's going to the Lakers. So
But yeah, I mean, pretty much, yeah.
hmm
Tobias Harris, we touched on him a little bit already.
I think the Celtics are his if is his most likely landing place.
Yep,
Is the place he's most likely to land. That's what I'm looking
If
for.
Orlando doesn't match. Yeah. Brandon Knight, he's probably going to stay in Phoenix.
Okay, it took me a second. I'm like, okay, which Brandon is this? Is this the one in Milwaukee or is this the one in Phoenix?
Yeah, Brandon Knight, and I think he's going to stay in Phoenix. They're
Mhm.
trying to lock him up. He's another guy
Isn't he
that
restricted?
is he restricted?
I'm pretty sure he
I
is.
think
He is.
so. Yes, 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 he is. And they paid a lot for him at the trade deadline, so kind of like the Goran Dragic situation, they don't want to let him go, so they'll
hmm
pay him. And then we'll look. Here's our last guy for tonight, Monte Ellis.
Um, I've seen the two main teams I've seen are Atlanta, just because that's my team, and then Miami. There were a couple other teams that have slipped my mind, but I'll look them up here in a second.
Sacramento.
yeah, Sacramento
Sacramento
was
One of
one.
is
the other
another
team.
guy,
Um,
which is kind of interesting again because of George Karl.
Pacers. I've seen Pacers as well for
in
him.
all likelihood, I think Ellis is going to be overpaid no matter where he goes. I mean, sure, he's a good offensive player, but he's not worth what they're going to give him. Um,
Uh,
I say, not Miami. I think that's ideal for him and for Miami, but I don't think that's going to happen. Um,
no, that's not going to happen as long as Wade comes back.
yeah,
I think
He could run.
Sacramento
He
makes
could run
sense.
the point
I'd
though.
like to
But
see
then they have
Sacramento.
Dragic. Wait, never mind.
Yeah,
Okay, forget it.
Yeah, Sacramento.
Sacramento makes sense. I like Sacramento. Yeah.
And also, there's one thing I wanted to add to this list. There's been a lot of trade rumors around Joe Johnson. Sure, he has a giant, unearthly contract, but he has only 1 year left on his deal. And in the NBA, we all know that no contract is untradeable. I've heard
Huh.
there's potentials of him being, unless there's a no trade policy, of course. But um, I've heard rumors of him going to Memphis, which would be amazing for Memphis. Sure, Joe Johnson is not all that he's led up to believe or whatever. He's not what he once was, but he is still a premier offensive pro- producer.
And he can make big shots.
which is exactly
I
what
love that.
Memphis needs, and I want this to happen. Jeff Green, that experiment did not work out for you, Memphis. Find a way to keep your essentials, keep the Marc Gasols, the Mike Conleys, maybe even the Tony Allens of your
Hopefully the
team,
Tony Allens.
and
That's their defense right there.
find a way to ship out enough to take in Joe Johnson's unheard of contract. Was it 24.7 million or something like that?
It's something
Somewhere
very,
up there,
very
but
close to that.
that's one of
It's
the
like Kobe-esque.
other than the DeMarcus Cousins trades rumors. That's the one big rumor that I've been hearing about lately.
And Luke Ridnour.
That I
He's
wouldn't
Being
call that.
traded to
Been
two different. What is it? Was he
no,
like two?
traded today again.
He did,
his fifth team in the past week or 2 weeks.
but it wasn't it like three teams in 24 hours or something like that.
Yep, yep.
He's
Oh
gonna
well.
he's gonna break. Who holds the record for most teams? Is
Oh,
it
who
Kevin
was
Ollie?
it? Oh, I don't know.
Kevin Ollie's up there. I know that. But anyway,
I don't know. Uh, quick news update here. Leonard's deal is 5 years, 90 million, which is actually a little bit less than I expected.
isn't that?
Really? That's about what I expected it to be.
Well, I thought they'd go max, which is around 108 million.
Oh yeah, that is true.
But hey, that's good for them. Maybe that's clearing a little bit of room for LaMarcus Aldridge. We'll see. And then also, Al Farouk Amino is going to the Trailblazers for 4 years, 30 million.
Okay, I thought you were about to say Pelicans, and I was about to say that's a terrible deal for them.
Okay, yeah, I read that and I thought for a sec I just saw 30 million. I'm like, oh no, and then I saw it was 4 years. I'm like, okay, that's a good deal for Al Farouk,
It is a good deal for him.
especially
Trailblazers are just trying to
yeah.
recover, I think, at this point.
Oh, it's the LeBron effect
hmm
with LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up our NBA segment here for tonight. Let's finish this podcast off in the right way. Going back to our off-topic discussions for a little bit, we're going to talk about pet peeves this week. And supposedly Christopher Kaufman has quite the list.
Yeah, you've opened up a whole can of worms for me here. I think I have a list of 25
Gosh.
that I just came up off the top of my head in like maybe 10 minutes.
Well, no one wants to hear about all of your problems for too long, so let's just make it
I'm just gonna
kinda
go down
quick.
the list,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
if they're okay, well, anyway.
Go ahead and go down that.
First one came to my mind immediately: chewing your gum with your mouth open. People who don't say thank you or just who are impolite in general.
Oh, I
Uh,
hate that. Yep, agreed.
I'm a little hypocritical when it comes to this, but people who constantly interrupt.
Okay.
Grammar mistakes.
That was one of mine. I'm kind
People-
of a grammar Nazi. Kind of annoys me. I can't.
Hmm.
I can't. Just
That's
Let me
because
speak.
you're our editor.
I know. It's just I can't get it out of my brain.
People who don't know the difference between irony and coincidence. People who
Is
can't
that
make
a
this.
thing?
Yes, people say everything is ironic when in actuality about I'd say about half, maybe 60% of the time it's actually coincidence.
It's a fine line.
No, it's not at all. It's very clear. Anyway, people who can't make decisions, people who say one thing and then do another, thick southern accents, and I know I am
You're from Georgia.
That's
Tulsa.
why it's a pet peeve.
Yeah,
Oh,
I can't
that's
stand it.
touche.
People
Well-
who say GIF instead of GIF.
Yes, agreed.
I'm
Hate
guilty
that.
as
Hate
charged. It's because everybody else called it GIF.
It's
So,
GIF. The
I
G
know.
stands
No,
for graphical.
I know it's GIF
They
now,
graph-
but initially everybody else called it GIF, so that's what I called it
Yeah.
until
Wait,
I
I thought
learned the right
that
way.
it was the other way around. I thought the guy who created
Yeah.
them said it was called GIF.
Yeah, he said it was GIF. I don't care what he says. The
No,
G.
I agree. I thought you were saying though. What? No, never mind. Okay, but I agree. Yeah, it's
Wait a
it's
minute.
GIF.
Wait a minute. If he says it's GIF,
I don't care.
then I gotta call it GIF again.
Hey, you're interrupting. That's one of my pet peeves.
Go ahead. Just go
Um,
ahead.
Keep
People
going.
who don't understand the concept of how to be on time. People who can't let things go. People who
Yeah.
try to act like they know what they're talking about.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one. I can dig that one.
Nickelback.
That it's funny though. I hate it when people do it, but I like it at the same time because if you know what they're a lot about what they're talking about and they try and talk about it,
It's
you're sitting there laughing
Yeah,
because it's
you
funny.
just laugh inside. And you can see it on their face. It's like they're trying to like think about the next thing they're gonna say, and like they're like processing like, um,
No, let me make
yeah, making
quick.
stuff up, and yeah, I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I think I know what I'm talking about. That
If I say this, it might sound good enough
Mm.
that and basically it's like they're hoping you don't know enough about what they're talking about for you to
exactly,
call them out on it.
exactly.
It happens with sports a lot when people are trying to talk statistics to me, especially in baseball and basketball. I'm like, yeah, go on, tell me again. Mm-hmm. All right, yeah, you do realize that this is the actual case and not what you just said.
It's
But
tough
anyway,
because I don't want to burst their bubble.
no,
I'm
I
just
love
like,
doing that.
I'm
It
just like,
had
go ahead, Christopher.
Nickelback. That's enough.
just Nickelback.
Modern rap music. Some of it's okay, but I like the classics better.
The large majority is just pointless.
Yeah, guys who are disrespectful towards women.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
hate it.
this is a this is one for I was kind of hoping Ross was here for this one, but I'll tell him about this later. People who say "Careless Whisper" was written by Wham and not George Michael's.
Okay.
Lazy musicians. Auto tune. People who are so confident in how wrong they are. LeBron super fans. LeBron super haters. People who can't mind their own business. Lists that don't end with a 5 or a 0. Humanity in general, and last but not least, Hayes.
Moving on
I
from that comment, my pet peeve list: Christopher, Christopher, and Christopher.
No, not at all.
Hey Christopher, that list didn't end in a 0 or a 5.
It did, and it was 25. There are
No, I'm not
25.
talking about your list. I'm talking about Hayes's list.
Oh man, my list is three. I
That's
just
why
I'm
that's
just
why you're number
I'm
25
just
is.
totally on his pet peeve list.
People
I
read
think
your name last so they understand.
yeah.
I mean, so they remember.
My three. I only wrote three down because I'm just kind of a fun-loving person in general. I'm kind of a grammar Nazi. I don't really like it when someone's looking away and obviously not paying attention to what I'm saying. And the constant need to be politically correct.
Mm.
Oh man, I should add that one.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I won't go on to a political
hmm
rant, but yeah, just the constant need that we have to be politically correct in every manner of life.
I could only okay for mine. I could only think of two. I'm sure there's more that I have like that. If they come up in like everyday life, I'll just be like, oh, I hate that. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like, I can't really think of any like off the top of my head. Only two. The first one is, and let me prefix with this with, I don't get road rage. I do not get angry at other people. I do not. I don't yell. I don't do anything like to get angry when I'm driving. But the one thing that ticks me off above everyone else is people who like when you're clearly driving, people who pull out in front of you and then proceed to drive slower than you.
Yeah,
That is the worst. Like
that's
I understand if it's like an old person or like the elderly or whatever, I get it. Like I get it. But if it's somebody who's like I don't know, like maybe 20s to their 60s or 20 to 50s or whatever, and they pull out in front of you and drive slower, no, that's not okay. That bothers me. And that's probably the only thing when I'm driving that really bothers me. Like I can let pretty much anything else go, but that just bothers me. Then the second thing that I hate above pretty much anything else, I this really annoys me because I know a couple people who are like this. People who always find a way to make the conversation about them.
Yeah.
That is the worst one. Like I know somebody who basically you could be talking about anything, literally anything, talking about uh, talking about like I don't know the
Sports.
weather or whatever, and they'll be like, "Well, I know one time when I went to this place, like I don't care, I don't care." Like it's really annoying. That bothers me as well. Actually, I thought of a third one as well. Can I
Go
go
ahead, go
ahead?
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. I listed
Um,
25.
okay, the third one is people who will like say they've seen something or heard of something when they actually haven't, just to agree with you.
That's me. I do that all the time. Just like, all right, I know I haven't heard or seen this. I'm just gonna say yes to further along the
Pretty much.
conversation.
It's like, do you know
I
who
know what it's
else?
about. I know what it is. I haven't seen it. I'm not qualified to have a conversation on it, but I don't want to interrupt the current flow of the conversation just by saying no, I haven't seen this or whatnot.
Or
I get that, and I'm guilty of
I'm
doing
kind of
that
the guy
too.
where I'm just like, you say something like, have you seen, so and so or whatever went on? I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
okay, keep going. Yeah, okay. I haven't, but okay.
yeah. This comes up a lot with me when I'm talking to somebody about music because like I'm big into music and all this. People will mention like a guitarist name, and I'm like, oh, blah blah blah. I'm like, oh yeah, and I've heard that name before, but I'm just gonna say, oh yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. I'm not fully knowing what band he or she or well he plays for,
Mhm.
but you get the
Yep.
point.
I'm gonna.
I
I'm gonna.
I'm that.
Go- Here,
I'm guilty of doing the exact same thing, except that there's a difference though. It's like more when people have done it, it's kind of that, I guess, thing from when you were younger, I guess, when you hadn't seen as many movies or something, and somebody
Mhm.
would say a movie and you hadn't seen it, but you'd say you had just because you wanted to seem cool and
Oh yeah.
seem like it. So like that's more what ticked me off about it was that people kind of uh, feel like uh, feel like you're kind of gonna judge them off of it if you've seen it or not, like
yeah.
that
Yeah.
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
like,
thing.
oh, have you seen Pulp Fiction before? Oh yeah, huge fan. Well, what's your favorite scene?
The part where
Uh,
the guy gets shot, you
the
know.
bathroom. That
Oh
scene.
yeah, that too. That's another aspect of it. Like you, like it's I'm okay if like you haven't seen it, but you say you have. But then like if I ask you a question, don't try and like fish something out of the air for something about it if you don't know about it. Just say, "Oh, I haven't actually seen it," and I'll be like, "All right, that's totally cool. I get it." But you
Yeah.
have to see it, like something like that.
I'm gonna add two more things, and then we'll have to wrap this up. Two more things off the top of my head. Bullying. I don't know. It just bothers me.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's one of those things that I don't understand it. Maybe just because I haven't really gone through that mindset or have had to deal with some of the things that bullies often deal with. I just feel like it just really annoys me that someone is going to hurt others to make themselves feel better about themselves.
I completely agree with you. Yeah.
That that kind of ticks me off a little bit. And then the other thing has completely escaped my mind.
Yeah,
Uh,
same. I had one more that I thought of that I can't remember
I
what I
got
thought
into
of.
my bully rant and I forgot. Um, you guys have anything else to add?
Ignorant people.
Yeah, ignorance, definitely. I
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes it's just not their fault though.
Not necessarily. There's a difference though.
Depends.
Like there's a difference though.
Depends.
Like I go to school. I go to school with I'll say it with like the most ignorant bunch of people I may have ever met. Like the ignorance is I can I had a girl in my advisory not know what a metronome was. Like and I'm like, what? I'm like, the little thing you keep time with it when you're playing an instrument. And she's like, I don't play an instrument. I was like, I don't. She's like, so I don't know what it is. And I'm like, I
What's
don't
an
care.
instrument?
I don't care. I'm like, I don't care. I don't have to build a car to know that they use metal in it.
I'm not gonna lie. I didn't know what a metronome was.
Oh wow.
Wow,
I
Hayes.
don't use instruments. Like exactly what that girl just said. I don't. I've never played musical instruments before.
You
But
never even
it's
played Pokemon? I mean, come on, that's a move in Pokemon. I mean, that was, to be
exactly.
honest, that was the
No,
first place my mind went.
no.
Oh, it's that
I
move where it's metronome, and then all of a sudden, I think a
I've
random
heard
move gets picked out
I've
and
heard
used
the
it.
word before. I just couldn't correlate what it was
I
related
also,
to.
when I say I go to school with an ignorant bunch of people as well, it's that they kind of don't respect people being different from them. Like if they're different from them, then they're immediately weird or whatever, and they're immediately like out the outcast or not
Yeah.
normal. Basically, like ignorance like that is really annoying. Like people who can't respect other people's like differences. Like I like this. Like I don't know. I like playing video games or whatever, and I like playing like some games that might be considered a little bit more nerdy. Like people don't respect that.
Yeah.
They're immediately just like, oh,
Nerd.
you like playing that? Oh, you must be a nerd or whatever. Like no, I still take interest in all these other things you do. I just have it something that's different.
Yeah, like I just thought of one. It's people who judge other people based off appearance, and now this isn't just a race type of deal, but just like people like, oh, she's weird, she has pink hair or whatnot, stuff like that. It's just like there's people around me who do that. I'm like, come on, you don't even know this person. Oh, that guy's weird. He has an earring. I'm like, come on, you don't know him at all.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. That was the other one I thought of was that people who judge you based off of like one thing they know about you. Like I knew a kid like that who I don't remember what I did, but basically it was something he found out about me that he didn't like about me, and immediately he just decided that he was going to hate me, that he was going to just not like me for it. And I remember another one of my friends who was friends with him as well was like, "Hey, why do you hate him?" And he's like, "Because of this." And he's like, "Well, he's actually got a lot of things in common with you that you like as well. So I think if you looked past that one thing that you didn't like, you might actually get along or whatever." And then turns out we did, and then we became friends. So
It's like me and Hayes. I
It's
mean, I respected him. He told me he was a Heat fan, and then I lost all respect for him. But I moved on, and even though all of his points are invalid because of said reason, I've moved on just to tolerate him.
Well, for some reason, he just cannot believe that I'm actually a legitimate Miami Heat fan, despite the fact that
They
I'm
don't
also
exist.
a Miami Heat or a Miami Dolphins fan. I grew up in South Florida. My entire family is South Florida sports fans.
And I applaud you for being a Dolphins fan and sticking with it through and through. But
It's
come on,
it, it's been
it's time
tough,
to
but
go home. Go back to Cleveland.
dude, I've never been to Cleveland. I don't want to go to Cleveland. I don't want to be. Why would you want to be a Cleveland fan? They haven't won a championship in
ever,
50, 60
Ever.
years.
Oh,
ever.
any sport, okay.
Yeah, in any sport. They haven't won it in 50 or 60
I
years.
mean, I know exactly why you're a Cleveland fan. I mean, you go where LeBron goes.
Dude, I didn't even like LeBron before he went to Miami.
I didn't even know who LeBron
That's a
was.
I,
simple
Who's
excuse.
LeBron James? I don't know.
I didn't even like LeBron before he went to Miami. And now that he's not in Miami, I don't quite care for him, to be honest with you.
See, it's like you guys though. You guys could have kicked me out, and as me being some wannabe to join with you guys, and instead you invited me in.
Oh,
And we're just a big, happy family here at Youngspeak Sports. And
Ben,
we're
I have
just gonna.
something to tell you.
What's that?
Oh, man.
You're fired.
Oh, dang it.
And that's how we end our podcast here tonight. Ben Goldberg has just been officially fired from Youngspeak Sports. Goodbye, and happy free agency to all of you NBA fans.
Hey Ben,
What?
you're rehired.
Yeah!